You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on. Hello and welcome to Mamamia Out Loud, what women are actually talking about on Wednesday the 20th of December. I'm Holly Wainwright.
I'm Elfy Scott.
And I'm Mia Freedman.
Before we get started on the show today, there is some news that we wanted to tell you. Mamamia has a new charity partner. That means a charity that we are working with throughout the year in lots of different ways. We're donating staff hours. We're working with them on all kinds of campaigns to raise money. And it is Rise Up. Rise Up is an organisation that helps to support victims of domestic violence get a new start, helps them escape domestic violence situations. And as you would know, because you would have heard us talking about it on Mamamia, this year has been a devastating one for family violence in Australia. A woman reports domestic or family violence every 2 minutes in our country.
And they're just the ones that do.
Exactly. And it's been the deadliest year for domestic violence in a very long time. So at Mamamia, we are proud and hopeful to have launched a partnership with Rise Up that's going to go all the way through 2024.
What we're hoping out louders is for individuals to pledge a donation of $2 per week directly to Rise Up to help women and their families start again. It gives us all an opportunity to do something that can make a big difference to something that feels so big and can bring with it such despair. This is something small and positive that we can all do to make a difference. The money goes directly to sourcing key household items, furnishing a house top to bottom, or clothing and supplies for children starting their new school, because Rise Up knows that one of the biggest reasons that women return to domestic violence situations is because they have to leave everything behind. And what Rise Up does is that it helps turn emergency accommodation into lovely homes and havens for the women and their children who are escaping these situations. If you want to help, there will be a link in our show notes. Come on out louders, get behind this. Or you can go directly to riseup, riseup.com.au.
Meanwhile, on our show today, Prince Harry's year of revenge has come to a righteous close with a big win. Also, between Barbie, girl math, and a return of hair bows and ballet flats, 2023 has been a very girly year. So what has the year of the girl left us with? And how long did you spend getting ready this year? The actual cost of female prep. But first,
today is a great day for truth as well as accountability. The court has ruled that unlawful and criminal activities were carried out at all three Mirror Group newspaper titles, The Mirror, The Sunday Mirror and The People, on a habitual and widespread basis for over more than a decade.
Prince Harry had a win this week in court at the end of a huge year for him. It's been a big one. His memoir called Wah. What was it actually called? I've actually forgotten what it's called.
Spare.
Okay, it's not called Wah, but it came out, the highest selling nonfiction book ever in history. He also endured the world's most awkward family reunion at the Queen's funeral. But this week, he had a win because he won his case against journalists at the Mirror Group newspapers for phone hacking. You might remember back in the 2000s, a number of celebrities and members of the royal family had their phones hacked. Those details, those very personal, private details, were used either to alert paparazzi and journalists to where they were or to inform stories that were written about them. In this landmark ruling, London's High Court awarded Prince Harry about $210,000 for financial damages, which, frankly, if you're Prince Harry, doesn't seem like a lot because that would barely pay his security probably for a week. But it was symbolic, and he said in a statement, "Today's ruling is vindicating and affirming. I've been told that slaying dragons will get you burned, but in light of today's victory and the importance of doing what is needed for a free and honest press, it is a worthwhile price to pay. The mission continues." What jumps out to me is he's got quite a high opinion of himself. I love people that refer to themselves as slaying dragons. Holly, he didn't do it for the money, naturally, although maybe he did.
No, he didn't.
Why is it so important that he won this case?
I think what's really interesting, right, is that a lot of people have been questioning Harry's motives this year. And it is almost exactly 1 year since that Netflix documentary came out that was Meghan and Harry's like right of reply to everything. I think it was 6 hours. Was it 6 hours?
It was all of the hours.
Because it was our Christmas party last year.
Yeah.
Mamamia's Christmas party last year. There was the night that it dropped. And so those of us who were covering it like threw down champagne and then all went back to our hovels where we like watched them all and wrote the stories and
all
prepped the
6
shows.
hours,
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's been almost exactly a year of basically Harry and Meghan's, to a slightly lesser degree, sort of comeback campaign.
Their complaints tour.
Their complaints tour. And a lot of people have said, well, what are they doing? Because there have been some bad news headlines about them getting deals dropped with Spotify and those kind of things. This is what Prince Harry is 100% focused on. He is driven by wanting to hold to account and make pay, like not literally in terms of cash, but this particular payment is not what this is about. The institutions that he literally holds responsible for killing his mother in his eyes, hounding his wife almost to the edge of insanity and self-harm, poisoning his relationship with his family in terms of his family being sort of complicit in his eyes of this system of leaking and all. So basically, Harry's number one enemy is not the royal family. He doesn't want to dismantle the royal family. He quite likes his title. You'll see it front and centre on the Christmas card. He wants to absolutely destroy and remake the mainstream media, which is really interesting because people are laughing at him in lots of ways about this. You know, they laughed at him when he flew into London because he doesn't like to spend any time in Britain for obvious reasons now. He literally gets booed in the streets. To appear here, he submitted 150 different articles that appeared that he says were obtained by illegal means. What actually got found in the case was that 15 of those 150 could be proven to have definitely.
So they were things like, I was talking to my girlfriend and we said we were going to blah, blah, and then there were paparazzi at the airport. And how do you prove that it was from the phone hacking, not from maybe someone at the airlines who leaked it or someone in the royal family?
Yes. So the judge said that it couldn't be ruled that all of these stories were obtained by that, but there was no question that these 15 in particular were the result of phone hacking. And they were things like Prince Harry was 17 years old. He was smoking a joint in a country pub. He got in lots of trouble with his dad for it. And that ended up all over the front pages of the paper. Things like an argument that William and Harry had about Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell, and whether or not they should go and confront him about wanting to sell his mother's possessions. That ended up in the paper. Harry was 19 then. Things like arguments he'd had with his girlfriend, Chelsea Davy, over the 6 years they were together that ended up in the papers. So these are all things that happened a long time ago that the judge has ruled on for him. And so it feels in some ways, lots of people kind of eye rolling and going, shouldn't you be over this by now, whatever. But Harry is driven by a really righteous anger about this stuff. And it's actually winning him a lot of respect in certain quarters in Britain, never ever from the tabloid press, because let's remember he's going after them.
Of course.
Why would they ever write anything nice about him ever when he's literally going after them? But in other corners of people who have been trying to get the mainstream media in Britain, which is notoriously brutal, to reform, there's a whole group of people and there have been inquiries and there have been all that basically a lot of the media companies just laugh at and go, well, whatever, you've kind of given us some guidelines that we're not going to follow. They're saying that this civil case might be an impetus to more legal action, that it's something that can have a long tail. As he says in that, the mission continues. He's not stopping. I think that this is really what Harry wants to do. He wants to change the world.
And I think in a way, I mean, at least to my mind, this isn't even necessarily like a Harry story. Like, I totally agree with you, Holly, that like, yes, this is very much his own mission at the moment. But I would also say like, in general, like these cases have been unfolding for years and years, right? People have been suing for so much money and he is just partaking in this trend. And I think that actually it is a really respectable thing to be doing because the British tabloid media is hideous. And if it comes down to it, if I'm choosing between Prince Harry and Piers Morgan,
exactly,
I think I know whose side I'm on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, how do you also define the tabloid media? I mean, Piers Morgan was an editor of those newspapers at that time. So you're right. I understand now. I mean, I was facetious about talking about slaying dragons, but the way you explained it, Hole, I understand that it's not an easy road, or many would argue not a sensible road, to go after the people who can destroy you all
Yes.
day, every day.
And
who
decide public opinion.
Yeah, who can decide public opinion. And they also had victory when they sued, I can't remember what tabloid newspaper, but about publishing Meghan's letters to her father. What's interesting to me, and I'm watching The Crown at the moment, I know that not everyone's loving it, and I don't know if I love it. It's just very soothing is the wrong word. What I'm really loving about it, it's interesting the way it portrays Harry. Harry's very much a side character. It's about William and the Queen. But Harry is portrayed as a mean, snarky dick, really, while William is trying to be the responsible one. What I loved about it is that it really looked at William's journey or experience of losing his mother, because the way it's been portrayed, because Harry has spoken about it in such detail and such moving detail and heartbreaking detail, we've kind of forgotten that there was someone else who also lost their mum. And he has never spoken about it in the depth that Harry does, and no doubt that is or isn't his choice, who knows. But I liked, even though that this is not a documentary and it's not his
You
words.
need to remember that.
No, I know. But it even made you think, oh, yeah. Like sometimes you can just think. And the other thing that I realised is that Harry is so consumed with hatred.
No, he is, definitely.
And I feel maybe this is cathartic and he's like, it's vindicating and whatever, but he can never bring his mum back. He can never undo what happened to his wife. And the years and years and years and years and years and hours that you have to devote yourself to these kind of lawsuits.
And the money.
And the money is so all-consuming and life-consuming that I can't imagine that's a good space for him to be in.
This is what's interesting, right? Because the language in that statement about slaying dragons and the mission continues 100% points to the fact that this is what he is consumed with. He is consumed with revenge is like a sort of throwaway word that I've used when I've been writing about this. It is revenge, but the thing is, as Elfy says, it's righteous revenge, because the same media that through this era, this particular era that he's talking about, did in his mind kill his mother. And we know that's a simplistic way of looking at it, but certainly made a lot of lives miserable, is indefensible. Like it is indefensible. Yeah. And there are a lot of ordinary people whose lives get swept up in the news cycle who have been also really badly treated and hacked and had their own privacy invaded by the tabloid media. And so the celebrities kind of draw the headlines, but there are a lot of people who really support what Harry's doing. But what is interesting, because you're 100% right, Mia, that he is driven by fury, I think, whether or not it's hatred, because his family, in Harry's eyes, have all the same motivations, but they are choosing a different path, which is to still play the game.
But they can't.
No, they can't do what he's doing because now he's outside the system. But at the same time, like in his mind, he's like, somebody has to do this. A lot of the other celebrities have settled with the media and have settled for big sums, but part of that comes silence. Harry and Meghan have like settled some cases because they've got so many going on, but they would have been offered a lot of money to settle too. But he is driven by a very righteous revenge to bring these people into the light. And you know what? It's hard to argue that it's not pretty noble.
He needs a job. And I'm actually not kidding.
Job.
No, but that's what I mean. I think he needs a job because I think that no doubt William feels the same way about the media, right? But what I've enjoyed or what's been interesting about watching The Crown and thinking about his situation is so much more complex because he's going to be, he doesn't have a choice. Like he doesn't have a choice. He can't just burn it to the ground like Harry is doing because he is still inside the system. Elfy, I know you don't like working. Don't you think Harry, and I say that with love, you know, I'm teasing her.
I'm on the bloody podcast.
I know. But you know what I mean. You know I don't understand anyone who doesn't have a job and doesn't want to work all the time. Everyone needs a purpose. Everyone needs something to do when they wake up in the morning.
Purpose. I think this is a fantastic purpose to
have. Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Okay.
I totally think so. And I also think that it's very interesting that all of these cases have unfolded in civil courts so far, but what they're pointing towards now is actual criminal convictions and criminal trials coming out of this because
and that's what he wants.
The Harry ruling. Yeah.
He literally wants the editors of that era who he was so scathing about in his book and gave really awful names to and everything. He literally wants them pulled out and jailed and held up to account. That's what he wants. I don't know. I think it's really interesting because I think that it is as I say, I think it's a righteous mission. It's a strange one.
But does he want laws changed, or does he just want individuals to be punished and held accountable? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, or of course that I understand why he would want that, but what is his end game? Jail for those people?
I think he wants both, because the thing is there was a massive inquiry into this era of tabloid media in Britain called the Levinson Inquiry that found all these abhorrent things, but then it was just followed up with sort of guidelines, like they're not legally enforceable in a way that has actually, I mean, things have changed, but not that much.
It's illegal to hack someone's phone.
Absolutely it is.
That is actually illegal. So what does he want to happen?
I think he wants accountability for those editors from that time, and not only him, but the whole hacked off campaign want real legal repercussions for media who are still or were profiting from these illegal practices, rather than just kind of going like, oh, well, oops, that was a different time.
If there is one thing in this life that I was built for, made for, put on this earth to do, it is hot girl summer.
It's just frustrating because no one ever warns you that on hot girl walks, you have to walk back home.
If I buy a top, it's $50, return it, I make $50. Go math.
This is my meal. I call this girl dinner. Girl dinner.
2023 is officially the year of the girl. No question. So there are hot girl walks, hot girl summer, girl dinner, and girl math. And in a recent article in The Cut, which is titled Women in Retrograde, Isabel Christo writes, "It's tempting to see the girl as being foisted on us, just another wicked instrument of the patriarchy. It's women who are dressing up in pink and chirping, 'Hi, Barbie,' at each other in the movie theatre. Women who are spending thousands on coquettish schoolgirl skirts and ballet flats. No, I've never said that word out loud. And it's a woman whose protracted adolescence is fodder for a concert tour that's on track to be the biggest in history, thanks, of course, to the spending power of other women." So the idea is that women are, in a way, regressing. They're reaching back to girlhood. And I wonder, is this a good thing? Could it possibly be a positive thing for feminism? And when do you stop being a girl and start becoming a woman? Holly Wainwright, you're a woman. What do you reckon?
Such a woman. I'm conflicted about this, right? Because I don't want to be a big downer, but I wrote this piece about this a while ago after the girl maths thing, which kind of rubbed me up the wrong way a bit, about how I think we're all loving girl, girl, girl because being a girl seems like fun, whereas being a woman literally does seem like a big downer. It's like if you talk about girl trips and girl dinners and girl nights and stuff and you replace that with women, it suddenly sounds like we'd all be sitting around trying to plot how to take down the patriarchy, which we may well be doing in our own way. But doing that seems much more fun if we've got like an oversized bow in our hair and are all saying, "Hey, Barbie, are we taking down the patriarchy today?" So there's a bit of me that rankles at it because it's sort of like being a woman is hard work. It sort of insinuates a lot of caregiving, it insinuates a lot of mental load, a lot of sort of injustice.
Responsibility.
Being a girl sounds like a good time.
It's also sexy, right?
It's sexy. It feels carefree. It feels like all the best things. And so there's a bit of me that's like, oh, grow up. What we should be fixing is the idea that being a woman is a downer. But on the other hand, I love that girl, which used to be a bit of an insult, that's so girly, or you run like a girl, or you hit like a girl, or is now a powerful thing, and the grown women that I work with, who are admittedly a lot younger than me, they talk about being girls all the time and they call each other girly all the time. I'm a shower at night girly. I'm a smoothie girly. I'm a coffee girly. And there's a bit of me that's like, oh, but then I'm also like, isn't that a good thing that now girls are powerful? What do you think, Mia?
Well, so the whole thing with girly, which is interesting and has become part of the vernacular this year as well, the use of that word when you describe yourself as a particular type of girly, it's about creating community. It's about saying, this is who I am and I belong to this group of people who also feel the same way about that.
I'm an endo girly.
Exactly. I'm a podcast girly. And I think it's really interesting, this idea of reclaiming words and how words can be very, very different depending on who they're used by. So a man or a teenage boy who says girlies, very different to a young woman or an older woman who says girlies. In the same way, like I say bitches all the time, like, hey, bitches. I don't mind my daughter saying bitches, but not my sons can't say bitches. And I explain it's a very different contextually and culturally. And so I think that this idea of being a girl, and what you said, Elfy, is so interesting about sexy and carefree, because when the Spice Girls started talking about girl power in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was a very palatable, commercial, fun way of talking about feminism. Feminism has always had a really bad brand image as something that is earnest and that it is, you know, women with hairy armpits, you know, who hate men and no bras. And that's obviously not what it means, but to a certain group of women, there were those connotations, so they didn't want to be associated with it. Whereas girl power, it was kind of a different name for the same thing, even though it was never clear what girl power actually was. I just thought it was interesting, that idea of girly being part of community.
Is it about tricking girls into thinking they do have power when they don't? That's one of the problems.
I agree with you, Holly, because I hate the idea of girl dinner. I don't like girl maths. And I think it's partly because I don't relate to the idea of being a girly girl. Like, I tried saying girlies the other day for the first time. It does not roll off the tongue for me.
You are very much a woman, I would say.
I think I'm a dude, actually.
Yes.
I think that's my problem.
Yeah.
But I also think, like, if I think about the male equivalent of this, right, like men have all of this like boy culture built into being a man. There's like
Video
boys'
games.
toys, like video games and skateboards and guitars. There's like boys' nights and things like that, boys' weekends. Somebody once said Saturdays are for the boys to me, like for real once. And I was like, I'll never speak to you again. But I do think that like it is interesting that men have this kind of fluidity between adolescence and being adult men. And it doesn't challenge their ability to have power as men. Whereas
It's kind of charming.
It's kind of charming. It's kind of cute. Girls kind of, I just said girls, women kind of like boyish men in some ways, and they kind of have license to do that a lot more than women. And so I kind of, as much as I don't love girly culture, I like the idea that women are treading this path of that kind of fluidity between being girly but also maintaining power for the first time.
When do you have to stop saying girl math, girl dinner, I'm a such and such girly? I would feel ridiculous, obviously, at my age, saying I'm a such and such girly. But this is the Grinchy bit of me, is that girl math sounds fun when it's like justifying a serum or a pair of shoes, but it's not girl math when you're trying to stretch the family budget to feed everybody. Which,
That's woman math.
But that is definitely not girl math. That is woman math, and that's not fun, because being a woman with responsibilities apparently is not fun, right? But what's the line?
I would say it's the same with boy. Like when you're talking about boy toys, boys' weekends, girls' weekends, when you think of what those things are, it's about almost a nostalgia for when you didn't have responsibilities.
Yes.
For when you were young. And it's kind of identifying, it's drawing a line around a group of people or a gender, but what overlaps it is that sense of no responsibility.
Yes. Basically when you're adulting, that's when it ends.
It's not at all, because it's a concept. So you can have a girls' weekend at any age.
Yes, of course.
You can have drinks with the girls at any age, because it's girls, because it denotes it's pleasurable, it's carefree, we don't have responsibilities, we want to go out and enjoy each other's company. So I don't actually think that it's necessarily infantilizing of women at all. And that's why girl maths, it's ironic, because we know that it's not how numbers work. When you return something, you haven't actually made a profit. And when you buy something with your voucher, it's not actually for free. But it's almost that nostalgia for the time when life was just simpler.
And I think it's no coincidence that this is happening this year. Of all years, it's been a terrible year. And I think maybe people do deserve to have just a little regression as a treat.
Spice Girls, yes indeed. Just girl power is all we need. We know how we got this far. Strength and courage in a wonder bra.
Outlouders, if you want to make Mamamia Out Loud part of your routine, 5 days a week, or just get more of us in your ears, we release segments on Tuesdays and Thursdays just for Mamamia subscribers. To get the full access, follow the link in the show notes, and a big thank you to all our current subscribers. We love you.
Get ready with me, Natural Makeup Edition.
Get ready with me while I tell you some facts about myself.
Get ready with me for the airport.
3 hours. That's how long your fancy celebrity spends getting ready for a red carpet event. We know that because when Pamela Anderson turned up to various fashion events this year, not wearing makeup and with her hair in a bun, she said that was how much time she'd saved. She said, I didn't want to spend 3 hours in the makeup chair again.
I didn't come to Paris Fashion Week and think, I'm not going to wear any makeup. I just thought, I don't know, something just kind of came over me and I was dressing in these beautiful clothes and I thought, I don't want to compete with the clothes. I'm not trying to be the prettiest girl in the room. I feel like it's just freedom. It's like a relief.
27 minutes is how much time the average woman spends getting ready for work, apparently. And as we read in a newsletter this week, that's 3 times as long as the average man spends getting ready for work.
Does that include the amount of time he spends in the toilet? Because
good question.
It should.
I'm not sure if that was included in the survey.
I don't think it does.
The newsletter was written by Amy Odell. She's an American writer and fashion journalist. And she was saying that if we were compensated for that time, you work out the average of that time, it would be like $78,000 over the course of your life that you spent getting ready.
So it's like a time tax.
Yeah, it's like a time tax. And there's no question that it's a real tax in lots of ways. Hillary Clinton wrote in her memoir, I've never gotten used to how much effort it takes just to be a woman in the public eye. I once calculated how many hours I spent having my hair and makeup done during the campaign, and it came to about 600 hours or 25 days.
Oh, wow.
She said, I'm not jealous of my male colleagues often, but I am when it comes to how they can just shower, shave, put on a suit and be ready to go. The few times I've gone out in public without makeup, it's made the news. Mia, is this the grinchiest way to look at getting ready, that it's basically time being stolen from women?
Yes and no. For some women, it's the most joyous time of their day. Like, I love getting ready more than I love most things. I really, really enjoy it.
How long do you spend getting ready?
I reckon 27 minutes, and that includes my shower, because I know I start at 8, I finish at 8:30 and I have to be out the door at 8:30. So that includes making an Instababble video, blow drying my hair, having a shower, doing that while I put my makeup on, and I've got it down. That's how long it takes. My favourite part of the night used to be getting ready with girlfriends, and I really miss that. Like, that was often more fun than the actual.
So fun.
Yeah, when you're a teenager, especially because you usually wouldn't get in the club and you'd end up just, in a park. But the getting ready part was so much fun. I also have seen women who, for example, work on television. There is a real tax to that. So if you work in breakfast television, you have to get into work about 90 minutes earlier than your male co-host. And even with journalists, if there's like quick breaking news, who can do an interview, who can go, whatever, the man can just quickly do a bit of powder and go straight onto TV. The woman needs an extra 20 to 30 minutes before she can do it. And so often she won't be able to do it.
So offensive to the world. Yeah, I agree.
Literally. And I've also seen how those standards, and I know I'm not talking about civilians like us, but the standards of TV. So it used to be when I'd go in to do TV, I'd spend longer in hair and makeup than I would actually doing my little stupid segment on the Today Show or whatever. And it would be a good 45 minutes. Now it's lashes, it's hair, not for the guests, but for the presenters. You go into those, I haven't been for a long time, but it was like you'd see everyone's hair. Like every journalist and every woman, they've all got hair that they need to get on and eyelashes and all of these things. And this is what's interesting, because if it's something that you enjoy, for example, J-Lo, the Kardashians, would they resent it? Hillary Clinton clearly resents it, but she could not do her job without it. And yeah, I think it's
interesting, isn't it? Because the Kardashian era has rebranded this as glam, right? So it's like and now
or self-care.
Yeah, and now that's in the lingo. It's like, I'm in glam, when people are getting ready for things. And most people would probably most women would have only ever had their hair and makeup done for themselves, maybe at their wedding. But now a lot of people get professional hair and makeup done if they're going to go somewhere big or anyway, because it's become an aspirational thing. Elfy, do you think that it's all about whether or not it's a choice.
I was literally just about to say that. And I think in a way it kind of relates to that conversation we were having about girls just then, right? Like I think that feminism is all in choice. I think that's the only thing that really matters.
But it's not a choice if you want to be a television journalist.
But that's exactly, like that's the problem, I think. Whenever you are denied that choice, like in Hillary Clinton's case or in the case of television presenters, that's where it becomes problematic. Like I love doing my makeup. I love
How long do you spend getting ready?
I spend about 10 minutes getting ready. But I would say that like on a night out, I love doing the 45-minute one where you just keep putting layers on and you just see what happens. That's fun. I love doing that.
Do you ever get your hair and makeup professionally done? Like you're a model as well and you do all kinds of things. You do television and stuff. Do you like someone else doing your hair and makeup? Because that is my worst nightmare. I'll do anything to avoid that.
I love getting my hair and makeup done as well. But for television, you know how they make your hair really big? Yeah. That's an issue for me. That's the only thing I have a problem with. I guess I have spent like an inordinate amount of time in a makeup chair compared to the normal person probably over the course of my life.
And what do you like? Do you just accept that that's part of the job and you factor that in? Because if you're a model, you're getting paid for that time as well.
I do. Part of the problem here as well, I think, is something that Amy writes about in this article where she says that there is like a direct economic correlation between women who look put together and their success, because women who are well-groomed, I put that in quotation marks, do have more opportunities to climb corporate ladders, to get promoted, to be taken more seriously. And I think that is an issue.
That's the thing that's interesting, right? Because it's a whole mind-boggling thing to consider the fact that, as you say, Mia, for the women that we want to be presenting our news or talking to us from a podium as a politician or whatever, we insist that they look a certain way and we just accept it and don't question it. But if you're a nurse or a teacher or anybody working in an office, like, are you thought less of if you rock up in the morning with no makeup on and your hair in a bit of a mess? And the thing is as you say,
the data says yes.
The data says that yes, you are. So it is a tax on every woman to a degree. I mean, this is a cliche thing to say, but since I had kids and stuff, I don't spend much time getting ready. I nearly always put my makeup on my way to a thing. I'm always putting my makeup on in the back of Ubers while I'm driving, obviously at the lights only, on a train, in the passenger seat of the car. Like, I just don't have time for it. So I'm just like slap, 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 which probably explains a lot. But the thing is if I didn't do it, if I just stumbled into the office or even a social event without having done it, I would definitely feel like people would look at me differently.
And I think you'd look at yourself differently because, you know, you don't have to wear makeup for this podcast.
But I do.
Now podcasting has changed. This is what's interesting too. Now that we're in this video first visual world, now our faces are everywhere a lot more, whether you're a civilian or you're not. And for us, podcasting used to be something we'd come in with our hair, you know, it didn't matter because it was about our voices and our thoughts.
It was actually great. It was the same for radio hosts.
Yep.
Because the thing is that often, and this has died down a little bit because it is so ubiquitous, but often what people will comment on is what you look like, not what you're saying. And it used to be kind of lovely for that to not be a thing.
Well, because the medium has become visual.
Yeah.
So with social media, TikTok being the biggest media company in the world and biggest entertainment company in the world, YouTube, Instagram, all of those things, they're image first, content second. And even Jackie O, who's a breakfast radio host, she said that means she has to get up now an hour earlier because podcasts and radio and everything is filmed to make into social. Everything is filmed, whether you're giving a speech, whether you're doing at a conference, it's filmed. So we're all now on TV, essentially.
But that's how things are. Can we imagine a world in which we don't find women's naked faces so abhorrent that we don't insist that they spend an hour covering it up before we'll look at them? Can we imagine a world where that's the case? And are we getting any closer to it?
God, I hope so. The thing I find so unfair about being a woman in this context is that men have this like really small spectrum of how they look. My boyfriend wakes up in the morning and he looks basically exactly the same as when he's like out to the nicest dinner we've ever been to.
Yeah.
And yet, for some reason, I don't know exactly what it is. Why do I look like a cave goblin if I don't do anything, but I can also look really hot if I'm put together?
Yeah, because
I don't get it.
Because of the things that we buy, the products that we put on our face.
Yeah.
And that's why, because we know what that contrast is. So say men wore makeup, and I know some did, but like say all men wore makeup, there would be a before and after of Evan, you know what I mean? And this is why I always love that there is makeup, because I would hate if I was stuck with And it sounds like we're all down on ourselves, right? We're not fishing for compliments, but there's something lovely about being able to look in the mirror and go, oh, what I see doesn't match how I feel or who I need to be today. I can use these 7 things to look different. And yes, it means that I use these 7 things that I had to pay money for. I have to spend this time so I can conform to a beauty standard that's expected of women. I know, but I still like having the option.
Have you come into the office ever barefaced?
Oh, she has.
Yeah, all the time. Have you seen me on Instagram? Like, it's not that I have a problem with people seeing me without makeup, like at all. But to me, it's also part of the ritual of
transition between
like I wear no makeup on the weekend, and it's always ironic because coming to work, I will wear makeup, but I'll go out on the weekend and be seen essentially by many more people. I'm going up to Westfield. I'm like out in the world being seen by a million people, will not wear any makeup.
Yeah,
so for me, it's quite psychological.
It's a version of yourself.
Yeah.
Out Louders, I want to know how long you spend getting ready. I want to know what the average amount of time an Out Louder spends getting ready to get about their day. I've got a really frivolous recommendation before we go. If you're having a bit of a bad day, friends, I want you all to go to Victoria Beckham's Instagram. Now, you might be like, why? She's always trying to sell me an expensive eyeliner. I'm like, I know. But she's also trying to sell you on how hot her husband is. And it's really working. I'm recommending that you go and look at her recent thirst traps that she's been posting of specifically David Beckham's bottom.
Yes.
I don't like to objectify men, except of course I do, John Hamm, Brad Pitt, etc. But she posted a picture the other day, and obviously we'll put the link in our show notes, but just pop over to Instagram, of David Beckham fixing her television in his tidy-whitey boxes.
Hot little bottom protruding from beneath the TV cabinet. It was nice.
And clearly engagement was very rewarding, because then today she has posted him doing his workout, doing a series of push-ups, also in his very tight little boxer shorts. Now, I kind of am loving this Victoria Beckham era. And my recommendation, if you're having a terrible day, maybe just go and look at David Beckham fixing a television.
Well, I'm very interested in this genre of women posting thirst traps of their partners, because it's a flex, right? It's not just saying he's hot, it's saying he's hot and he's mine kind of thing. So I'm interested in that flex. But also they've clearly got very strong sexual chemistry. That's why I feel like it's authentic, because one of the things I noticed in the David Beckham documentary, towards the end, it showed them at their farm, or farm probably isn't the right word. I don't know, whatever it was.
Ridiculous
manor.
Estate, manor, palace.
And he was talking to the documentary maker and he goes, and that window's where I can see Victoria if she's naked and getting dressed. And I just was so taken with that, as someone who's also been married a really long time. The fact that he still got his rocks off from getting a glimpse of his naked wife.
He still sees her.
Who's had 4 of his children who he could see naked every day of the week and has done for decades. I just loved that.
I think you're right that it's a flex saying how hot my husband is, but it's also a very confident, because there's a different kind of my husband's hot, don't look at him. You know what I mean? Get your eyes off my husband.
You're welcome.
It's that you're welcome. He's
quite
hot.
Generous to other women, isn't it?
If you have watched the Beckham documentary and you loved it as many of us did this year, just pop over to Vicky B's Insta and just cheer your day up.
It's true.
Could you imagine how much Brooklyn has had to block his mum on Instagram?
Oh my gosh. I know.
So true. Now, I wanted to suggest that you get more of us into your ears, because one of the most popular types of dilemmas that we ever talk about on this show are wedding ones and money ones. And we've got this cracker that is on a subscriber episode that we recorded yesterday. It is so funny. Holly, Jessie and I unpacked this dilemma. It's about this wedding. You've got to listen. There are mother-in-laws involved. It's amazing. We'll put a link in the show notes.
Thank you for listening to Australia's #1 news and pop culture show. The episode was produced by Emeline Gazilas. The assistant producer is Tahli Blackman, with audio production by Leah Porges. And thank you to you, Elfy Scott.
Thank you, Holly.
Bye.
Bye.
Shout out to any Mamamia subscribers listening. If you love the show and you want to support us, subscribing to Mamamia is the very best way to do it. There's a link in the episode description.